I'm Nicole Majeski, the Secretary of the Delaware Department of Transportation, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here to our Delaware Transit Corporation facility here in Wilmington, and to highlight how the new bipartisan infrastructure law is going to assist departments of transportation with our commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions through our public transit system. It is a huge honor to be joined here today by U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary Buttigieg and Federal Transit Administrator Fernandez. This is rock star status for us in the transportation world, so we are so excited. I do want to just take a moment to recognize our other special guests that are here with us today, our Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall-Long, Mayor Przicki, where did he go? There he is. Thank you for welcoming us to your city. Members of the General Assembly, President Pro Tem Sokola, Senator Lockman, Senator Hansen, Representative Longhurst, Representative Bolden, and Representative Griffith. We are joined by our Newcastle County Executive, Matt Meyer. Yeah. And also a fellow member of the Cabinet, Sean Garvin from GenRec. We also have our friends here from the League of Women Voters and the Sierra Club. Thank you so much for being here and for all of your support. We're also joined by our FTA Region 3 Administrator, Terry Garcia Cruz. I don't know where she went. There she is, hello. And then we are also, I would say, more important, the most important dignitaries to me are the members of our DELDOT and our DTC family that are here. So I do want to acknowledge, there you go, the mayor is raising their hands. Shantae Hastings, our Deputy Secretary and Chief Engineer, John Sisson, our CEO of Delaware Transit, and then we have members of the ATU that are here. Kendall Barber, who is the president of ATU. Thank you all so much for your support. But just really, the employees of DART, there's a reason that we call you the heart of DART, because it really is, it's your passion, it's your dedication that drive us forward every single day in serving our customers, and we cannot do this without you. So to the employees of DTC and DELDOT, my heartfelt thanks for all that you do. All right. So, as the Department of Transportation, we recognize that transportation is the leading cause of greenhouse gas emissions and that we need to be doing more to address this, especially with our public transit vehicles, which operate long hours and are traveling through our communities. Governor Carney has given us our roadmap for making Delaware a cleaner state through our state's climate action plan. And our marching orders are to continue to make investments to incorporate zero-emission buses into our transit fleet. With the assistance of past federal grants, we have been able to convert 10% of our fixed route buses over to all electric, which are being deployed mostly in our densely populated areas like here in the city of Wilmington. So between our electric buses and our propane conversion, we have already reduced greenhouse gas emissions by over 25,000 metric tons, but this is just the beginning. We are so grateful to the support of our congressional delegation and the commitment the Biden-Harris administration has made to reduce emissions through this new bipartisan infrastructure law. So now it is my honor to welcome the top transit official in the United States. Nuria Fernandez was confirmed by the United States Senate as the 15th Administrator of the Federal Transit Administration on June 10th, 2021. With more than 35 years of experience, Administrator Fernandez made a name for herself as an inspiring leader in transportation industry, and we are so happy to welcome you to Delaware.
Thank you very much, Secretary Majeski, and good morning to all of you. Well, yeah, I guess we're still in the morning. The sky is blue, the sun is out, and we're standing in the first state, and we're delighted to be here. Thank you very much, Governor Carney, and of course, Secretary Majeski, Senator Carper, for all that you did, Senator Carper, to make it possible for me to be standing here to talk about what the transformation that electric buses are going to make possible across this nation. The bipartisan infrastructure law has brought us so much opportunity, and we want to put that opportunity to work. And of course, I want to thank my boss, Secretary Buttigieg, for his leadership. He is an advocate for public transportation. He uses public transportation, and he will be standing with public transportation as we paint the nation a beautiful shade of green technology. People throughout Delaware are riding the future every day on the buses you see behind us. Right here in the city of Wilmington, which is served by more than half of the state's bus routes, more than 12% of residents use buses to get where they're going. So whether it's getting to work, getting to school, to see the doctor, or other important destinations, they are riding American-made technology. And as battery electric buses, they help clean the air with every mile they take. So thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, we're about to put a lot more of them on the road all across the country. Congress has given the Federal Transit Administration more than $5 billion with a B to spend on low and no emission buses over the next 5 years. That kind of funding is going to transform communities. So I'm excited to join Secretary Buttigieg and Vice President Harris at the White House this coming Monday, where we'll be talking a lot more about what's going to happen on the electric technology. I want to be clear. This is not the only opportunity to replace older buses. It will mean brand new buses, new routes, new opportunities, and new skills for a workforce that is transitioning to the future of transit. Every single diesel bus out there today will be taken off the road because they carry 2,600 grams per mile of CO2, and that CO2 is devastating our climate. So, however, it is also one less vehicle that will be dependent on foreign oil. We don't need to import electricity to power the buses behind me. That's all going to happen right here. So I want to congratulate Delaware for driving into the future with this electric fleet. Delaware is beginning to transition 10% of its 200-plus transit buses to low or no emission buses. I also want to welcome all the communities, all the riders, and all the transit workers who are about to take their own journey into an independent, greener, cleaner electric future thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law. We cannot wait to help you along that journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, Governor Carney gave us our roadmap for making Delaware a cleaner state with the release of our state's climate action plan. Improving the quality of life of all Delawareans is at the forefront of all that we do, and it is my honor to introduce our governor, John Carney.
Thank you. And if you haven't noticed, Secretary Majeski is a little bit excited today. She said, "This is rock star status." I started my day, as I do often, getting my coffee at the Wawa on Wilson Road. And I ran into one of my constituents who lives just around the corner from me, who happens to be related to one of the employees here at DTC. And she came up to me and she grabbed me by the shoulder and she said, "I just love Mayor Pete. You are so lucky to be there today." And as we were standing in line, I don't know, can we call you Mayor Pete now, Secretary Pete? In Delaware, in politics, if you get to the point where people refer to you as by your first name, you know you've arrived, Mayor Pete. And here in Delaware, you have arrived at a place that loves you. I got to just tell you. By the way, my wife wanted to say hello to you this morning as well. Administrator Fernandez, thank you for being with us today. I also want to thank all the folks that work for DTC. Put your hands up so we can put our hands together and thank all of you for running this transit system. This is a big deal for you. It's a big deal for all of us here in the city of Wilmington, and it's a big deal for the state of Delaware. And I'm delighted to have my partners from the legislature here, Senator Sokola and Representative Longhurst in the Senate and the House. Thank you for joining us. And of course, our lovely Lieutenant Governor, who's got her Ukrainian and Delaware colors on today. They are the same. And lastly, just to thank the President and his administration and our congressional delegation. The only guy who's probably more excited than Secretary Majeski is Senator Carper. He's all about transportation. And so he's delighted. You'll hear from him in a minute. Secretary Buttigieg, again, welcome to Delaware. We couldn't be more ready for the resources that you're bringing to us today and that we're going to be talking about. Obviously, on the transportation side, roads, bridges, all that thing, as my colleague in Michigan likes to say, just fix the damn roads. And we're going to do that over and over again. But we're also, the thing that makes me so excited about this, Secretary Majeski mentioned our climate action plan. Our climate action plan fundamentally has two main things. Reduce carbon emissions in the atmosphere, right? We've done that pretty in a big way on the electricity generation side. The other side is transportation. Not so much. But this is an opportunity, Secretary Garvin, to really supercharge, pun intended, that effort to convert our transportation system, particularly single occupant vehicle and our transit system, into electric vehicles. And this legislation and the money that comes with it will bring significant resources to build that infrastructure and to take us into the future. And so I want to thank everybody who's had an opportunity, who's had a hand in making that available in the House and the Senate in Washington, my former colleagues, to our president, and to you, Mayor Pete. Thanks for bringing your message to our great state. As I mentioned this morning, you've probably noticed that this is a big crowd for Delaware, by the way, a really big crowd. And as I said this morning at our county executives event, thank you, Matt, for putting that together. It really was special. We are, as former Governor Markell used to like to say, we really are a state of neighbors. We really are, and we know one another. Got to be careful that you talk about somebody in Delaware because they might be related to the person that you're talking to. But if there's a place in our country where we can use these resources in an effective and efficient way to launch us into the future, we can do it here in the great state of Delaware. I don't know whether it's my responsibility to introduce. No, it's not. Okay. Thank you all. She is really excited about this event.
Thank you, Governor. So we can't do what we do in transportation without the support of our congressional delegation. And while we may be a small state with a delegation of only 3, they are the hardest working members of Congress in the entire country. And I know that Senator Coons and Congresswoman Blunt Rochester couldn't be here today, but they are constantly championing for our infrastructure investments all the time. And so we are so grateful for them. So now it is my honor to welcome our senior senator and chair of the EPW committee, who is responsible for helping craft this historic legislation, our Senator Tom Carper.
Thanks, Nicole. Give Nicole a big round of applause. All folks at DOT, great job. For years, Governor John Coney and I have worked out at the Central YMCA in Wilmington, Delaware, in the morning for many years. Mike Castle, when he was our congressman, worked out there with us many years as well. And there's a source of great joy. People get us confused. And a couple of years ago, I was walking in the front door on a Friday morning, and a guy's walking down the hall, and he said, "Good morning, Mr. Castle." And he got close to me and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, John." When we were gathering here, the governor was looking for his remarks, and he's looking for his coat and everything. It reminded me of a story, a transportation story, actually. about Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein used to live in Princeton, New Jersey. And he would travel by train up to New York or travel by train down to D.C. And then one day he got on the train and he started looking for his ticket and looking at his shirt and his coat and his pants. And he started looking in his briefcase and the conductor comes along and says, Dr. Einstein, we know who you are. You ride the train all the time. You're our friend. You're fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it. The conductor walks away and he turns around just about to go into the next car. He turns around and Dr. Einstein is down on his hands and knees looking for his ticket. The conductor rushes back and he said, Dr. Einstein, please don't do this. We know who you are. We know who you are. We know who you are. Dr. Einstein looked up to the conductor and said, young man, I know who I am too. I just don't know where I'm supposed to go. Well, we know where we're supposed to go. We know where we're supposed to go. And one of the places we were reminded this morning we're supposed to go is to be right by the side of the Ukrainian people. Are we there? Are we there? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And Mayor Pete, Mr. Secretary, you have, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, and Nur, I call Nur. Thank you so much for your leadership as well. About a year ago, we had a new president, and he called me on the phone, and I thought maybe he was calling to chew me out, but he said, I need some advice. I said, yes, sir. And he said, who should I invite over from the United States Senate to talk about putting together a big infrastructure package? And I gave him several names, and I didn't know what would happen. A week later, we were all in the Oval Office, and there were four of us: Shelley Capito, Republican from West Virginia; Jim Inhofe, Republican from Tulsa, Oklahoma; and Ben Cardin from Baltimore, Maryland. Senior Democrats and Republicans on the Environment and Public Works Committee. The president said, he said, for years we've had Transportation Week. Every year we have Transportation Week. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. He said, I want us to have a transportation and infrastructure decade. And he said, I need you, the four of us, to help lead the way. Our committee has a well-earned reputation of being a bipartisan committee. We're Democrats, Republicans, but we work across the aisle. We get stuff done. And he said, I'd like for you to report out of your committee by Memorial Day: water infrastructure legislation, drinking water, wastewater sanitation, flood control. And he said, I want you to report out another bill on surface transportation, roads, highways, and bridges by Memorial Day. That was in February. 2 months later, we reported both bills out of our committee unanimously. Unanimously. The woman who literally held the pen for writing the transportation bill is here with us today. She's looking the other way because she loves the limelight. Rebecca, raise your hand. Rebecca Higgins. Mother of the Year. Staff Person of the Year. She's great. We got a bunch of good people on the Environment and Public Works Committee. She's certainly one of them. But anyway, we reported the legislation out. It became the foundation on which the bipartisan infrastructure bill would be built. The foundation. And I was privileged to, along with Shelley Capito, two West Virginia kids. Can you believe that? When the president came out to sign the bill out of the White House that day, several months ago, and he stood at the podium right here, like where the lieutenant governor or David and the hole is right here. I was in the hole in the middle, and on my left side was Shelley Capito, and on my right side was Joe Manchin, and three West Virginia kids who had a hand in helping write the legislation. It was a great honor, and we're thrilled with it. It's one thing for presidents to propose ideas. It's another thing for legislators to convene and committees to report legislation out, and actually to pass it in the Senate. We had to get it through the House, and finally did that. The key part now is what do we do about it? And the key is we implement it. We implement. We're not going to just let it sit there. We've provided for the largest infrastructure package in the history of the country, and the last thing we want to do is just let it sit there. This last week, Secretary Buttigieg was good enough to come and testify before the Environment and Public Works Committee. First time he's been before since he was confirmed as Treasury Secretary. And there was a couple of people, I'll be honest, on the other side who were ready to create some mischief. John Lewis likes to talk about, what does he like to talk about? Good trouble. Good trouble. A couple of my colleagues on the other side, they were not interested in good trouble. They were more interested in trouble. And I want to tell you, this guy just wouldn't let him do it. He knew the stuff. He knew it cold. He answered all the questions flawlessly. He was thoughtful. He spoke in words that normal human beings can understand. And when it was over, I said to Shelley Capito and her top aide, I said, well, what did you think? And I think your top aide, Mr. Secretary, is ready to sign up to be your driver or something. I mean, what rave reviews. So that's we're in good hands and to try to implement this legislation. Last thing I'll say, Mr. Secretary, you've come to a state. This is the lowest lying state in America. Delaware is the lowest lying state in America. Our state is sinking. The seas around us are rising. If you talk to the my two senator colleagues, both Republicans from Louisiana, Bill Cassidy, John Neely Kennedy, you ask them what it's like to be in the state where every 100 minutes in Louisiana, you know what they lose? They lose a piece of land the size of a football field every 100 minutes. On the other side of the country in California, you have wildfires bigger than our state. Up in the Arctic Circle last year, my wife went up with some people just as a tourist. The Arctic Circle, temperature was 90 degrees. We've had more named hurricanes in the last year than any year ever. Something's happening here. Whether apologies to Stephen Sills, something's happening here. And just what it is exactly clear. The question is, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? Well, the first thing we have to do is figure out what's going on. And what's going on is there's way too much carbon in the air, more than we've ever had before. We've actually measured it back hundreds of thousands of years, and it's never been this intense. That's what's going on. And what's contributing to it in this country? Three major factors. One of those is when we drive our cars, trucks, and vans, and that's we're driving an EV. If we're driving, that's number one. 30% of our emissions in this country come from the vehicles that we drive. Another 25% of the emissions come from our power plants, to generate our electricity. Another 23% come from manufacturing operations. Think cement plants, think steel mills. Those are the major sources. But the biggest of them is emissions from our cars, trucks, and vans. You think, I drove a Chrysler Town & Country minivan for a few years, 600,000 miles. I sold it for $1. I went to the DOT, I went to the DMV. We have somebody here from DMV. I went to the DMV, and a fellow from Guatemala who does a lot of lawn work in our neighborhood, he was going to buy it from me for $1. And so we walked in, and you walked up to they called their number, we walked up the window, and the person at the window said, "Oh, Governor, do you still have your minivan?" I said, "Not much longer." And she said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to sell it to this man right here." And she said, "Do you have the title?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Turn it over." She said, "Turn it over. Here's what you need to do. How much are you selling it for?" I said, $1. She said, "Write 1.00." So I did. She said, "Sign it." I did. And she said, "Oh, yeah, there's a transfer tax." I said, "How much is it?" She said, 3%. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a nickel. I said, "Keep the change. Keep the change." But my vehicle put out a lot of carbon dioxide. But we have an EV here. We have the Tesla here today, a red one, that has some great licensing. USS Delaware. USSDE. USS Delaware is coming to Delaware for the first time ever on April 4th. No fooling. April 1st. First anniversary of the christening of the USS Delaware. Going to be here. Come and see us. Governor will be there. First Lady is going to be there. First Lady's going to. She might bring a date. Who knows? It's going to be a special day. But anyway, the question is, what do we do about our cars, trucks, and vans? I bought an EV. It's a lot of fun to drive. In fact, it is a hoot to drive. I've gotten 6 tickets, and none of them were for going too slow. I didn't mind paying them. The other thing, what do we do about it? We have. I like to run. I like the days I don't go to the ride. I'd be mistaken for John Kearney. I like to run outside. I don't run outside, and I run along streets, and I see buses. A lot of times the buses blow their horn, and a bunch of them are school buses. Cool. And for every DART bus I see, I probably see 8 or 9 or 10 school buses. And the question is, they put out a lot of, they burn diesel, they put out a lot of emissions. The question is, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? And what we do about it is we replace them. And the legislation, Rebecca Higgins over there, who's talking to someone else, not listening to my speech, there's money in that for, what I'm going to say, Rebecca, tell me, $5 billion? Okay, $5 billion for buying electric buses. And that's just for like the DART kind of stuff. Doesn't count in the school bus. We've got another, I want to say another maybe $2.5 billion for school buses, and then more after that. That's just one of the things we have to do. And today we celebrate the purchase, the acquisition of our 26th electric bus here for the state of Delaware. Mr. Secretary, if you haven't picked it up, I like music. I'm tempted to tell you all, I'd lead us in a verse of The Who's Magic Bus. But we're not going to do that. But these are magic buses. And they don't just materialize out of the thin air. A lot of negotiation, a lot of legislation, a lot of good work. And now, a lot of implementation by this man right here. I know Nicole wants to introduce him. And I'm going to yield to her to do that. But Nicole, let me just say this. You know, this guy used to be in the Navy. I used to be in the Navy. He used to be an intelligence officer. I was a naval flight officer and an intelligence officer. He served in a war. I served in a war. He's really smart. I'm not. But I'm a huge fan of his. And here to introduce him for the first time in the state of Delaware, our secretary, Nicole Majeski.
Thank you, sir. You can tell we're so excited, right? So now I get to give a warm Delaware welcome to U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who is currently serving as the 19th Secretary of Transportation, having been sworn in on February 3rd, 2021. We are so excited to have you here in the first state with us to talk more about how the President's bipartisan infrastructure law invests not only in our nation's transit system, but also our workforce and our environment. Mr. Secretary.
Good morning. Just making a note to myself, do not attempt to follow Senator Carper public speaking ever again. Staff, please take note. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Thank you, Secretary Majeski, for the fantastic work you and your team are doing. I want to again thank and acknowledge our extraordinary superb FTA Administrator Nuria Fernandez and her entire FTA team. Governor Carney, who has established Delaware as a forward-thinking state, especially with regard to the intersection of transportation and climate, whether it's the work of DART and the transit work that we're talking about today, or the zero emissions vehicle work that has been going on. It is noticed far beyond the state lines of the first state, and we are so glad to be with you and so admire your leadership. And Senator Carper, I would say nice things about him, even if he weren't Chairman Carper in charge of the committee, but it sure helps that we have such leadership on the EPW committee. When you hear about this bipartisan infrastructure law, so much of it was written by Chairman Carper, with support from his fantastic staff, Rebecca and so many others. I have never known a senator, by the way, to make such a point of acknowledging his outstanding staff, and it's a quality I admire and seek to emulate. That's why I keep stealing your staff. They're so good. I promise to take a break from that. And again, thanks for just this warm welcome. I see the mayor's here, the county executive. I'll find out later whether it's the county or the city that's in charge of arranging the weather. But either way. Oh, it's Lieutenant Governor. Okay, good to know. Well, thank you. Look, we're here to illustrate what President Biden's vision for building a better America looks like. And today, we're illustrating that with regard to some very good forthcoming news when it comes to the buses of this country. It is a very good thing that millions of people ride the bus every week to get to work, to get to school, to get across town, to get to where they need to be. The more people are on buses, the less congestion, the less pollution on our roadways. But we also know that far too many buses, the majority in our country, in fact, are outdated, They have diesel engines, they contribute to emissions and pollution, and we have a chance to do something about that. So next week, the Biden-Harris administration will announce an unprecedented funding opportunity to modernize bus fleets and bus facilities across the country and create good jobs in the process. We're giving you a sneak preview here. There will be more details when we make the announcement, but I can tell you right now, we are going to be opening applications for our low and no emissions grant program that'll help transit agencies get clean buses, primarily electric buses, like those that you see right here, and a second program to replace older buses in bus facilities. Thanks to this infrastructure law, we now have $1.1 billion for low and no emission vehicles, and that is about 6 times more than was available just last year. That's going to make an enormous difference in moving forward toward where we need to be with regard to climate. And Delaware is such a good place to talk about this because of Senator Carper's role, and by the way, Senator Coons, who I spoke to, who couldn't be here but was so supportive of this infrastructure law, as was your representative, Blunt Rochester. Governor Carney and Delaware have been early leaders on the ground, as I said, and I believe there's a model here that we can share across the country, and the urgency's never been greater. Once again, we had a stark warning from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change talking about the small and shrinking window for climate action. And I would add, we always talk about climate in terms of the consequences if we fail, and rightly so because they are dire, but this is also a good time and place to talk about what we stand to gain by getting it right. This is an opportunity to break the old false narrative that suggested there was a choice between climate and jobs. We're here to talk about climate jobs. And often those so-called green-collar jobs are also blue-collar jobs. It's the people who will be operating and servicing and manufacturing buses like those you see here today. And that's why we're going to be making good on our promise to help workers get the skills that they need to thrive in that electric future. It's why to receive grants under this zero-emission bus program, the transit agencies will be required to put forward a plan showing how they are going to support and train and retain their employees. And with very few exceptions, agencies will be required to use 5% of their grant funding toward these workforce development efforts. So it's not just that we're saying it's a good thing to do, we're putting dollars behind it. Funding specifically for the first time to make sure that skilled operators and mechanics working today on diesel buses are prepared to be the electric transit workforce of tomorrow. Also, and the President just yesterday in the Cabinet meeting reiterated this priority one more time, these vehicles need to be built, manufactured, right here in the United States of America. And for that to happen, companies need to be positioned to ramp up their domestic manufacturing, and we need to support them in creating those good-paying American jobs. Speaking of jobs, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this morning's news that America added 678,000 jobs in February, and unemployment levels are the lowest since the 1960s. And this is just one part of this extraordinary bipartisan infrastructure law and the vision that goes with it. So I'll just close on a quick note, which is a reminder that too often we speak about transportation in terms of things, in terms of objects, roads, bridges, buses, cars, and we care about those things. But of course, the whole point of this is people. The people who count on the buses to get to where they need to be every day, and I had the chance to speak with several frequent riders of the buses and learn about their experiences today. The workers we count on, the mechanics, the operators, the drivers. I know ATU, SMART, and others are here, and we thank you. And we know how much you've been through in these last 2 years, and so we thank you twice as much for that. Because you don't get to come to work on Zoom. And neither does anybody else who you're helping to get to where they need to be. And even people who may never board one of these buses. There might be a child whose bedroom is behind one of those air conditioning units on the second floor of those homes right over there, whose life will be better because they will not become ill, because they will not be inhaling pollution because of these clean buses. That's the kind of difference we can make right here. So I couldn't be prouder of this. I invite you to stay tuned next week for more good news. And again, thank you for the extraordinary work and the very warm welcome here in the first state of Delaware. And with that, I think we have a little bit of time for questions, which will be quarterbacked by my colleague in the puffy coat. Ben, take it away. So we're very excited about the opportunity to respond where a piece of highway infrastructure that was meant to connect also winds up sometimes serving to divide. And we see examples of this all over the country. The solutions are going to be different based on the local context. And so we'll look to the leaders here in Delaware to talk about what's right for Delaware. But we are very interested in projects that sometimes bridge across or beneath a highway, a stretch of right-of-way. Sometimes actually submerge it completely and cap it. And then you have that rarest of things, which is new land to work with. So this is part of what's contemplated in the new Reconnecting Communities Fund, $1 billion in the bipartisan infrastructure law, but could be a use for a lot of the other pots of money that are there too. And I'm very eager to see what ideas communities come forward with. Thanks.